So Tony mentioned that a group of us have been having a set of conversations for quite some time about what does it mean, this creative economy, how does it fit for Washington, what is it we should be doing, and how shouldn't we just stop talking to ourselves about this and see if we can't include the conversation with a much larger group. That's what we're doing here today. In fact, what we're doing is creating almost like a patchwork quilt of sets of conversations. People from Minneapolis who have built housing for artists, people who have developed Dumbo in New York, people who have worked in Ward 7 with African-American boys to see if we can fit them into the prosperity that the district is experiencing right now. Who is it who's watching this on a national scene, and how do we take this conversation, lead up with it a little bit, and then take sort of our own thoughts and concerns and move them to much kind of a larger audience, more people talking about the same sets of things. The work of a city's distinctiveness, talent, connectedness, and innovation is exactly the work of CEOs for Cities, which is led by our first speaker this morning, Coletta.
So when we talk about the creative economy, in general, we could talk about a lot of businesses because many, many businesses depend on creativity for their success. And the second way we can talk about the creative economy are those creative practices in art and design and media that are increasingly important to this growing creative industry sectors, as well as to the next evolution of some information and communication technology sectors. So it's that part of the creative economy, that second part that is more tightly defined, that I want to talk about this morning. I want to use a global definition. So ultimately in this effort, you can compare apples to apples globally. So globally, it includes arts, publishing, broadcasting, architecture, advertising and design, performing arts, and museums. Now, these industries account for 2.2 million jobs in 2004, or 1.9% of total jobs in the U.S. Now, just to put the sector in perspective, that's almost 1 million more jobs than the 1.3 manufacturing jobs making computers and electronics. It's also, get this, 400,000 more jobs that are in the manufacturing transportation sector. So add up all the people who make cars, trucks, buses, trains, planes, more people are employed. 400,000 more people are employed in creative industries. Now, I think that's something that our public policy isn't mindful of, our economic development policy isn't mindful of, but it's true. We've all heard about the so-called creative class. The creative class, I think, is a category of people that is so broadly defined that it won't be particularly helpful to this discussion or the discussions that come from this. But a much smaller subset, I think, is useful, and let's call them the super creatives. The architects, writers, artists, designers, engineers, and people in entertainment, sports, and media. They number more than 4.4 million workers, or 3.4% of all workers in America. And I think, again, they're useful for talking about this topic, and here's why. Of the 4.4 creative workers in the U.S., 4 million of them live in metro areas, and 3.1 million of them live in the top 50 metro areas. So they have a preference for cities, and for cities like this one, metro areas. And what's more, this is interesting, creative workers prefer not only cities, they prefer close-in neighborhoods in most metro areas. And when I say close-in neighborhoods, I mean neighborhoods within a 3-mile radius of the central business district. I had the opportunity to interview Richard Lester at MIT, an innovation guru at MIT recently, for my radio show, Smart City. And I was talking with him about the conditions that need to be present for innovation to occur. And he said there are 4 things. He said, first, you have to have smart people with ideas. Second, you have to have a tolerance for risk. Third, you have to have take-up of ideas. You have to have a market for those ideas. And fourth, you have to have places to share ideas. Because it turns out technology never rendered place unimportant. I want to look for a minute at the creative economy here in Washington, D.C. and the metro area. There are approximately 180,000 workers in creative occupations in this metro area. And if you add mathematicians and scientists to the definition I gave you earlier of super creatives, Washington, Baltimore, your metro area ranks third among the top 50 metro areas in terms of the percentage of workers in this category. You have 12.6% of your workers in this category, which is significant. The median percentage, take the top 50 metro areas, is 7.5%. So you are way overrepresented in creative workers and creative in creative workers. DC ranks #1 in the nation on the number of reporters, public relations specialists, editors, writers, and authors. You rank second in the nation in jobs, on jobs in arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media. And you rank 10th in architecture and engineering occupations. Here's the point. Let me get to the point really quickly. You can't deal with a class of workers where 25.6% of them are self-employed, or they're all very small or all very large, and deal with them in the same way that you typically would deal with economic development policy. And I think that's one of the reasons that this initiative is bubbling up, because I think there's a recognition that this sector needs to be treated differently, and not many cities are there yet, by the way. The creative industries are a new way of doing business. The policy interventions to support them, though, proceed in old industrial ways, and we have to get that disconnect resolved. Tax incentives may get you a major motion picture, but it's not going to get you the hairdressers, the caterers, all the support staff, the lighting technicians, without whom a film is not possible. So you have to look at this again as it really is, and begin to think about how the policy interventions are different. Now, there's a really good study out from Demos. It came out, the UK think tank came out this summer, and they looked at this. So what do you do, I think, is the title of it. Anyway, they suggested that people in creative industries need better access to resources, digital resources for maintaining portfolios of people's learning and production life, access to potential employees and collaborators, mentors and knowledge, easy access to microfinance, and the underwriting of risk in business loans. I know Carol's going to talk a little bit about that and what they're doing in Boston. They need spaces and meeting places, brokers and agencies that combine sector-specific expertise and local knowledge, that provide a point of connection to new opportunities, physical places that build networks on the model of guilds. Think about guilds as a model, open members clubs that provide a place for building informal relationships. Think back about what Richard Lester said about innovation, what it takes. It takes places where people can share ideas. Are you making those places available? And finally, they need stories. And I think that's one reason this summit is really important, because creatives need a constant supply of stories provided by public agencies through competitions, through research, and awards that reflect back how the sector works and grows and the value it creates. Again, a really good reason for this summit. We've done national surveys on the most mobile and entrepreneurial Americans, and those are college-educated 25 to 34-year-olds. And we found that 64% of them say, first, they choose the city they want to live in. Then they look for a job. Clearly, creative industries and creative workers are an important and growing part of what makes cities work. And together, we need to make sure that urban leaders understand that and they act on it. So I applaud the Commission and the partnership for convening this discussion, and certainly CEOs for Cities and our members stand ready to be your partner as you go forward. We'd love to help. Thanks.